Hi everyone, Steve here. Welcome to this issue of Monday Morning Musings. We're talking about the nature and the essence of God because we're going to get to some difficult topics here in a couple of weeks. I think probably everybody listening to this would say and agree, God's ways are not like our ways. Here's my issue. Why is it when that passage is quoted, God always ends up being just like us, only more severe, harsher, crueler, and we cover it all over by saying, well, who are we to judge the ways of the Almighty? And phrases like this, well, his justice and his holiness requires certain things. And in that requirement is genocide and bloodshed and all kinds of things, particularly if you're a literalist regarding the book of Revelation. God's ways are not like our ways. He tells us to forgive our enemies 70 times 7 in a day if we have to, but not him. Because ultimately, he's going to not only even the score with his enemies, but he's going to, he's supposedly going to just pour out his anger and his wrath on, all the people who are opposed to him, according to the literalist rendering of Revelation. Why do we do that? We project our human ideas, even the best human ideas of what justice looks like, onto God. And we assume that our way of doing justice is great, and God's is just like ours, only bigger, better, and badder. And that's why his ways are not like our ways. What if his ways that are not like our ways, what if he is kinder, more gracious, more merciful, more long-suffering, able to consider every contingency of every detail of every human life, and in the administration of his justice, which is equivalent to his righteousness? This is a quick aside, but when you read the Old Testament scriptures, particularly the Old Testament prophets, righteousness and justice are virtually interchangeable. They're a Hebrew parallelism, a pairing. They appear together, particularly in the prophets. That's another study. But my point is this. Sometimes we think of righteousness as, my personal declaration of innocence before God, and, I'm righteous and I'm going to heaven. And we separate the justice element out of it because the justice element is the social element. And we make them two very different things, and they're not two very different things. They are intricately intertwined with each other, virtually identical. So what if God's way of justice is just as radical as his way of righteousness? And typical evangelicals have no problem with, radical grace and God's way of rectifying and justifying and declaring righteous is not like our way. But then when it comes to the justice issue, first of all, we make it part of his essence, which it is not. And then all of a sudden, God's different ways don't apply anymore. Isn't it wild? I mean, particularly in the last day stuff that you see everywhere, that God's justice looks a lot like ours, only bigger, more severe. And if you're an eternal conscious torment guy or gal, we just put people in jail. God keeps them alive and tortures them in eternal flame, supposedly forever. What if mercy really does triumph over judgment? How does that work? What does God's justice look like? How is it not like ours? How is it different? Doesn't the scripture say that vengeance is the Lord's? Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, I will repay. And conjures up all these images, of of an angry deity coming out of heaven on a chariot and just wiping out his enemies. Doesn't the Bible say that, his vesture is going to be dipped in blood, and he's going to fill the valley of Hinnom with blood, and he's going to walk knee deep through the blood of his enemies, because, God is holy as well as loving, and God is just as well as loving. We have to sort these things out, or we're going to end up with a very schizophrenic God image. So for the next couple of quick episodes, we're going to unpack this a little bit more. Obviously, this will be weeks worth of a college seminar. These are just little devotional thoughts for you, something to think about, because I'm convinced his ways are not like our ways, and his justice is not like our justice. That's what he said. I'll see you next time.